Growing up in a multicultural household taught me a lot of different things. Having an Irish dad and a German mother not only opened my eyes to two completely different cultures, but also about how important it is to appreciate another culture in order to understand the people within it. Appreciating another culture includes many different things, like of course the food, liquor, history, music, dances, and clothing, but also, most importantly, its language. My German grandfather had worked his whole life as a blue-collar worker, which meant that he spent the majority of his time in various cultural neighborhoods of Berlin, working with different clients. Whether the family he was working for that day was Russian, Turkish, Serbian, or etc., he would learn as much about their cultures as possible, including the language. As a consequence of my grandfather's interest in languages, he passed that passion on to me by teaching me slangs and different words in different languages as I was a little girl. One of the most important lessons that he taught me overall, however, is that language is power, and as long as you have it, nobody can take that away from you. The great South African Nelson Mandela once said, "If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his own language, that goes to his heart." Firstly, one of the most powerful tools that comes with learning a different language is the opportunity to meet and get to know people in different cultures. When you have the ability to communicate with somebody who's from a completely different country than you, it gives you the chance to learn even more about their culture, like the people's humor, customs, personalities, and of course, finally, being able to make great international friends all together, like I have had the opportunity here at Young Harris College. I believe that this powerful tool of language is especially true with my multicultural background, because having the opportunity to be introduced into two separate cultures, especially my mother's culture of German, since I live with her, it has allowed me to appreciate and communicate with Germans all throughout my life, including all three of my German best friends, Hannah Herman, Emily Könme, and Zoe LaFrance, whom I met playing on the same soccer team with. Personally, I truly believe that without my knowledge and background of German, that I would have never been able to become best friends with the three most incredible people I've ever met in my life. Language not only serves as an important tool for getting to know others, but also for tourism. Adventuring and stepping into a new and completely foreign country is already scary enough, but especially even more if you do not know the language itself. Of course, the strategy of traveling to a completely foreign country and culture is a bit frightening. But what is life without overcoming fears and opportunities to gain completely new adventures in a previously undiscovered path? Having language as an aid when traveling to another country will allow your new adventures to be a breeze, from ordering on menus, shopping, cultural tours, transportation, to even simply understanding the fascinating people that you will be surrounded by during your entire journey. A personal example of when language helped me was during tourism when I traveled to Italy for 2 weeks. Of course, I don't know Italian, but I have studied Spanish all throughout high school, and it's a bit similar to Italian. However, while I was in Italy, it was almost absolutely necessary to have a good sense of the language because of how heavily the Italian people and locals rely on their own language as a source of communication. My trip to Italy enlightened me on the false American mindset that every other country in the world, and even including Europe, knows the language English. So that means that we don't have to learn their language in return. In fact, in countries like Italy and Spain that are extremely popular for tourism, with an average of 108.4 million visitors annually, according to the UK's Telegraph, the dominant language spoken is their own native language, in fact, with poor understandings of foreign languages, even including English. Within the world of tourism and exploring new boundaries, language is power. Additionally to the importance of cultural and touristic values of language, Perhaps one of the most obvious and prevalent reasons of why the knowledge of many different languages is necessary in the era that we as Americans live in today is because of globalization. In America today, there are many issues lingering amongst languages, which I believe causes this dislike of foreign languages here in America. Many people feel as if it's just a waste of time to learn a different language, or even simply just not that important at all. Other reasons may be more deeply rooted towards the poor educational system of America, where it's repeatedly illustrated to young students that language is not substantial to their future. It is only used as an unappreciative elective class that is only a tool to get into college and not to actually learn anything. Globalization is a simple thing to look at, since our most prized items like iPhones, computers, and televisions are being imported by the most thriving and booming economies that exist today. Globalization is not only very important for societies that we live in today, but and altogether the future of our children. According to Jingbo Sun, at the University of Beijing, even Chinese citizens are now starting to learn Spanish instead of English because of globalization. As these foreign non-English speaking countries become even richer, it will cause foreign languages to become completely necessary to know as Americans because of the enormous role within the global economy that these countries will have. As these thriving foreign countries don't have to rely on the language English anymore, it makes only knowing English no longer an advantage within the eyes of the world, but rather a complete disadvantage. To furthermore prove the flourishing presence of globalization, the top two most spoken languages in the world are Mandarin, which is spoken in China, and of course Spanish, which is spoken in 21 different various Hispanic countries, according to BBC News. One of the best explanations of the popularization of these two languages is because, of course, their role in the world economy, which produces huge amounts of exports yearly. With the decline of English-speaking countries like England and the United States of America taking a back seat in global productions, it should be clearly displayed to the United States and even countries around the world about the importance of learning languages in order to keep up with globalization today. When countries have the skill of only being fluent in their native language, it can drastically affect their progression as a society to move forward. It will firstly not allow these countries to be able to communicate with one another. Then secondly, and in consequence, will not allow these language deficient countries to form business interactions with countries that are actually prospering from globalization. A good example of countries to look at when it comes to adapting to learning different language and prospering from when it comes to current day globalization is European countries. In countries like Denmark, Norway, Switzerland, and Holland, the average person is fluent in at least 3 or 4 different languages announced by European daily news. You may be wondering, as an American, how do people in these different countries of Europe know so many different languages? Well, the answer lays among these countries' remarkable educational systems. Of course, firstly, these languages that they first learn is their native, because after all, your native language is your culture and your heritage. However, according to European educational website for Success, these European countries are able to adapt brilliantly to globalization by making it a requirement to learn their first foreign language at the young age of 5 and 6, then their second foreign language, shortly followed at the age of 10 and 12. By the end of age 16, these European countries have their students fully fluent in 4 different languages by requiring, finally, a 3rd foreign language. Compared to America, that is only requires 1, and it's only about 2 classes of electives during high school. Personally, growing up and attending American educational systems all my life has made me notice the huge difference between cultures in accordance to languages when I compare myself and my fellow American students to my German best friends. With my German best friends being fluent in 4 different languages commonly known like English, German, Spanish, French, or Russian, or even Chinese, while Americans are only fluent in the language of English, it makes a drastic difference to employers. Obviously, if an employer has the opportunity to choose between a German student who is fluent in 4 languages compared to an American who is only fluent into 1, it's likely that 99.9% of the time that the employer will choose a German student over the American who is only fluent in 1, and that doesn't bring that many capabilities and skills into globalization of today because of language and its power. To conclude, I believe that languages are an essential and necessary item to know and to perform in the world today to get a deeper understanding of the people from all around the world in different cultures. For the power of tourism, and finally, as an opportunity to advance in the global economy that relies so heavily on the communication of language today, whether it's through Skype, whether it's through television, whether it's through phone calls, businesses and globalization is a huge impact with countries speaking to one another. And if one country does not know the language to another that they want to make business with, it won't be capable of making any kind of business interactions. Because after all is said and done, at the end of the day, language will forever remain an essential power around the world.